Chad Robichaux served 8 deployments to Afghanistan as part of a Joint Special Operations Command task force. Now, he's also battled PTSD, but he's helped thousands of fellow vets through his Mighty Oaks Foundation. His brand new book is called An Unfair Advantage: Victory in the Midst of Battle. Please welcome one of our American heroes, Chad Robichaux. Chad, good to have you here.
Thanks so much, Governor.
That's a lot of deployments, Chad. That's a lot of combat to see.
Well, we've seen after 20 years in war and terror, we've seen guys with, I've seen over 10, 15 deployments. My time was, I was a Force Recon Marine, but in a JSOC task force, special operations, we do charter deployments. It's like 4 months deployments, and we come back and get trained up and go right back out, so.
When you came back after all of that, there were some things going on in your head that weren't like they were supposed to be. Did you know something wasn't quite right, or did somebody have to tell you, your wife or your family, say, Chad, you're not the same person?
No, it began with a lot of anger, frustration, which I was seen as a child. My father was a Marine. I was a Marine. Both my sons, Marines. But I seen it growing up, so I knew something was wrong. And the anger started to manifest in some physiological symptoms like numbness in my arms and face, my throat swelling shut. I didn't say anything because I thought the guys I worked with would, think I was weak. And so I've tried to push it down. Eventually, it got worse. I lost some team members were killed in combat, and the wheels began to fly off for me. And I came home, was really suffering from debilitating panic attacks, paranoia, and some anxiety, major anxiety. And I eventually was diagnosed with PTSD. And
it's interesting to me, Chad. I mean, you face combat. You face the very reality of likely dying over there. But the panic attacks were more from when you got home. And I think a lot of people who've never served as you have would have a hard time understanding why you were more overwhelmed by life in peacetime back at home than even in that combat. Can you explain that even?
Yeah, I can. I mean, myself and thousands of veterans that I've talked to that have struggled with the same things, we function in combat because we have to function. We have to function for our own survival and for the survival of our teammates to the left and right of us. And so in those moments we function. It's when we come down and things slow down that you're able to process some of those things. And your limbic system, your brain can't process things the same way, and you have these physiological effects that manifest in things like panic attacks, where you literally feel like you're gonna die at any moment. And it spirals you into deep depression, which I spent in a deep depression for a period of about 3 years, and I almost ended in divorce and suicide. I faced a real battle with suicide. I found myself in a closet with a pistol in my hand trying to decide whether I want to live or die.
Oh, man. What was the turning point? What was it that turned you around? Because obviously that's not where you are today.
No, well, I was in that closet, and my family pictures on the floor, and I had a pistol in my hand, and I was trying to build up the courage to pull that trigger. And my wife intervened. She came to my apartment, and I remember answering the door, and we got in this argument, and she asked me a question that radically changed my life. She asked me how I could do everything I did in the military, going to special operations and all these things she saw me do. But when it came to my family, it came to my situation, that I quit. And there was no more soul-cutting word for me, Governor, to be called the quitter. And I made a decision at that moment I was going to turn things around, but I didn't know how. And a man stepped into my life to mentor me. And through all the things he led me to discover, the most impactful thing that changed me was the restoration of my faith. And I became a Christian, surrendered my life to Christ, and he mentored me for a period of about a year. And through that process, I found restoration, I found hope, and I found ultimately what I think we seek our whole life for, and it's purpose. And that purpose manifested with me having a deep burden in my heart to share what I discovered with others.
One of the things that I found so wonderful about your book is you talk about biblical manhood.
Yes.
I mean, nobody questions whether a Marine is a real man. I've never heard him say, I don't know about that. So that's not even on the table. But for you, coming to Christ and then really getting a grip on what biblical manhood means, how did that manifest in your life, and what does that mean for you?
Well, I think the world, particularly many young men, are confused when they think they have to choose between their masculinity and Christianity. I felt like I had to choose that, and I chose on the battlefield to put my faith on the side, which left a giant hole inside of me that I filled over the years with hate and rage and anger and bitterness, and it broke me. What I come to realize is there's no more stronger man on the battlefield of Afghanistan or life than men of God, and that Bible has a very clear blueprint of how men should live, and women should live too, but speaking of biblical manhood, that men should live and how we respond to the hardships of life, because we're all going to face hardships of life, whether we go to Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere. the Bible has a very clear path of how we respond as men. And when I started making those decisions, I realized I had control of the choices. I looked back at my life and said, there's some bad things that happened to me.
Yeah.
And but those things didn't lead me to be in that closet with my pistol in my hand. What led me there were the choices I made in response to those things. And I realized I still had control of my life and the ability to make choices. And now I had these biblical principles I was learning of how to calibrate my life. And I came to this realization that I didn't have to let my past define my future. I could choose a different future moving forward. And now I had a set of principles to align that future with. And it changed my life.
Well, your life is now impacting thousands of others through the organization that you and your wife have created called A Mighty Oaks Foundation.
Yes, sir.
I want our audience to know about it, but I want them to know about your book called An Unfair Advantage. And the reason is because there's so many of our veterans who are struggling and they need what you've discovered. And you talk to them about it in this book, and I hope people will get it. An Unfair Advantage is available now on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Get a copy for yourself, or maybe get a copy for a friend or family member who might be experiencing PTSD. And you can find all of Chad's books, his other projects, and a whole lot more at chadrobichaux.com.